Most business owners believe that working harder is the path to more money. You see it everywhere: hustle culture, grinding 80-hour weeks, sacrificing everything for the business. But here's what nobody talks about: the hardest working business owners I know are often the most broke. And there's actually a biblical principle that explains exactly why this happens and how to flip it around. So if you've been putting in longer at days, lots of hours, but your bank account is not reflecting that, then this is not about working even more. It's about understanding why more effort often leads to less profit. And it actually leads to worse service for your clients as well. And once you see this trap, you're not going to be able to unsee it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the 3 reasons working harder keeps you poor and the biblical framework that can double your revenue while cutting your hours. So this is not theory, but it's how the most successful business owners I know operate their companies. So here's the truth that hardly anyone wants to admit. When you trade time for money, you hit a wall. When you hit that wall, it's brutal. It will break you. You see, there's only 24 hours in a day. Even if you work 18 of them, you've maxed out what's humanly possible. But here's where it gets worse. You become the bottleneck in your own business. So let me tell you what happened just last week. I'm trying to get someone to cut my yard. Had a guy come out, quote me a price, seemed great. But then weather hit. I contacted him again, asking when he'd be able to get to my yard. And he said he couldn't take on the work. Why? Well, because he's working every single dry daylight hour available, and he still can't get caught up with his current clients. I mean, this guy had a hot lead literally standing right in front of him. He wanted to take the work, but he couldn't take the work. So think about that. He's working harder than most people I know, but working harder is actually keeping him stuck at his current income level. His business is not growing. I imagine he will lose some clients after the season. Here's his problem. He's the only one in his business, and he's not charging enough. He's trapped himself in a cycle where more work equals more problems, not more profit. And here's the kicker. If he doubles his rates tomorrow, he might lose half his clients, but he'd make the same money working half the time. Then he could actually take on new clients or bring in help to grow even bigger. But most business owners never see this. They think the answer to the money problems is more hours. But more hours without leverage just creates a harder wall that you can't break through. But the wall is not even the worst part. Working harder actually makes you dumber in your business. Here's what I mean. When you're constantly putting out fires, you never get time to think about why the fires keep starting. You're so busy being busy that you can't step back and see what's actually happening. It's impossible to work in a smart way on your business when you're in this mode of putting out fires in your business. That lawn care guy is spending every hour cutting grass, but he's never spending time figuring out how to systematize his business or how to delegate to contractors or employees. He's never thinking about a pricing strategy or hiring processes or marketing systems. He can't because he's always cutting the next yard. And this is where most business owners get trapped. They confuse motion with progress. They think because they're exhausted at the end of the day, they must be moving the business forward. But exhaustion is not an achievement that you should be striving for. The urgent tasks completely crowd out the important ones. You know it's urgent? Answering that next email, finishing the client project, putting out whatever fire just started. But you know what's important? Well, it's building systems that prevent those fires, creating processes that free up your time, developing your team so they can handle things without you. Most business owners live their entire life in urgent mode. They never make time for important mode. And here's the brutal truth. If you don't make time for the important things, you'll never escape the urgent things. It's like being so focused on chopping down trees that you never sharpen your axe. You're working harder and harder, but you're working with a duller and duller blade. So here's where everything changes, because this isn't just a business problem, it's actually a spiritual one. God never designed us to work ourselves to death. He designed us for multiplication, not addition. So if you look at the parable of the talents, The master gives the first guy 1 talent. He gives the next guy 2 talents or money, and he gives the third guy 5. And he goes away and he comes back. And the guy gave 5 says, "Hey, here's your original 5, and here's an additional 5 that I made." Okay. Guy that had 2 talents, here's the 2 that you gave me, and here's an additional 2. So both of those guys multiplied what they were given by a factor of 2. They doubled what they had. Now, the guy only had 1, he went and just buried it. He actually told the master, he's like, "Well, I knew you were a hard man, and I was scared, so I just hid it because I want to make sure to give you back what you gave me." And he was very angry. He said, "You could have at least put it in the bank and got some interest on it for me." He called him wicked and lazy. So the other 2 guys definitely worked, right? But they multiplied. So I'm making the assumption here they utilize leverage in order to get that type of result, in order to double what they were given. You'll notice the master doesn't praise the servants for working harder or longer hours, but he does praise them for multiplying what they were given. The servant who buried his talent and played it safe, well, he got rebuked. And the ones who took what they had and leveraged it into more, they got rewarded. So work is required. That person that buried it did no real work other than hiding what he had. The other 2 had to work. And we are to look at the ant as an example of hard work. So I'm not saying you don't need to do hard work, but I am saying that you need to spend more time thinking hard in order to find the leverage to multiply your efforts and be a good steward of your time instead of trying to brute force your way to success through additional work. That's the biblical model for business. You're not supposed to be the hero doing everything yourself. You're supposed to be the steward who multiplies what God has given you. So you think about Jesus. He had the most important mission in human history. He could have traveled to every town, healed every person, taught every crowd himself. What did he do? Well, instead, he chose many disciples, including the 12 that was around him all the time. He multiplied himself through others. He built a system that would continue long after he was gone here on earth. He sent them out 2 by 2 in towns to preach the good news. Well, even Moses, back in the Old Testament, after being scolded by his father-in-law, he actually got help to lead the people of Israel. You see, true stewardship is not about maximizing your all effort, but it is about maximizing your impact. And impact comes through multiplication, not addition. But here's what most entrepreneurs miss in business. They think to get ahead, they need to work 7 days a week. But God actually commands us to rest. The Sabbath is not a suggestion, it's a commandment. He built rest into the very fabric of creation because sustainable growth requires it. And when you're working 7 days a week, you're not being a good steward. It seems you're making progress, but really you're showing you think success only depends on you. But God designs the rhythm of work and rest because it shows we know He is the one that's in charge, not us. And real wealth gets built through building something that works even when you're not working, not through grinding yourself into the ground. Maybe it's time to grow your business through multiplication instead of attempting to grow it through exhaustion. You've seen that hard work without leverage creates a wall that will break you. You become the bottleneck in your own business. Just like that lawn care guy who couldn't take on new work even though he wanted to because he was trapped in the grind. You've seen that working harder actually prevents you from working smarter. When you're always putting out fires, you never get time to think about why the fires keep starting. You confuse motion with progress, and exhaustion becomes your false measure of achievement. You've seen that God designed us for multiplication, not addition. And the parable of the talents shows us that stewardship is about maximizing impact, not necessarily effort. The Sabbath principle teaches us that sustainable growth requires rhythm of work and rest. The bottom line is this: if you want to build real wealth, you need to stop adding more hours and start multiplying your efforts. You need to leverage systems, and you need to have the wisdom to work with God's design instead of against it. Now, if you're ready to see exactly how to implement this, I've got a video for you that walks through the specific steps to run a business that doubles your income while having your work hours, and you can find it right here. This is not about working less only, but it is about working with leverage instead of brute force. And I want to hear from you. What's one area in your business where you've been trying to brute force success instead of finding leverage? So drop a comment below and let me know. And I'll see you in the next video.